It's Lil Baby.
Welcome to episode 42 of Conversations with Chai. I'm your host, Ihram Chowdhury, aka Lil Baby Ram Ram, and today I have with me the founders and executives of the Monkey King NYC. I got with me Munzzy and Harvey. Yo,
Thank you for having us, bro.
Appreciate y'all doing this. I was gonna tell you how I wanted to start this, but I was like, y'all are gonna crush this regardless of how I give it to you. So, we talked. I went obviously to Monkey King, fire food. Y'all took care of us, and I was talking to Munzzy, and she was telling me like the story of how y'all are here, right? Because I thought it was like a recent like start, right? Like I thought y'all started like last October, and Munzzy was telling me that this is now
5 years.
5 years, and on this
Journey. Yeah.
On this pod, we always talk about like how much like resilience it takes to be like a creator and an executive and a business person, right? And I think y'all's story truly encapsulates that. So I want to give y'all the shot, just like, yo, start it from the beginning, right?
Yeah. Damn, where do we go? I guess I'll start on my side. For me, 5 years ago, I turned 25. I'm officially 30 now. So for me, I used that number as a reset. I wanted to really grow. I was at, like, I guess, rock bottom, like the lowest point in my life. And I had nowhere else to turn but to God. But also just for me, I just really wanted to grow as an individual. And I had to like really look at myself in the mirror and realize that there's a lot of flaws and insecurities within myself that I think the first 25 years I kind of just like but swept it underneath the rug rather than like address it head on. And I think until I hit rock bottom, there wasn't this like desire within myself to want to grow and unlock the next potential. So when I turned 25, like I remember telling myself, I was like, I want the next 25 years in my life to be very different from where it's been. And that really just started that journey of taking a leap forward into the world of unknown. I studied nanoengineering, so I had a career as a process engineer in the semiconductor industry in North Carolina. And I just quit my job and decided that I was going to just go on this journey of enlightenment and development and just, I wanted to practice the mentality of everything I need is within myself and that no matter what life throws my way, I will be okay, and just going on that journey of practicing that mentality. So, one thing led to another. Our paths crossed. I mean, Harvey also quit his job at 25. He's 2 years older than me. So we both had the same journey start, but then our paths crossed, I guess, when I started taking mine. So I'll let you kind of, what made you quit your job?
I mean, for me, honestly, like, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I never really saw any other path outside of that whole, I didn't know what business necessarily, but I always knew that I was going to end up being a boss in some way, like having my own company or having whatever it was. I think and life for me early on was about kind of carving out my interests. So I've been privileged enough to kind of develop the interest and an innate drive to take a deeper dive into everything that I kind of like seemed interesting to me. So whether it was fashion, music, or food, it was something that I was willing to explore, with through the lens of curiosity, right? And that was kind of what drove me into doing eventually, what we're at right now. My background, we both went to SUNY Albany together.
Shout out to the Great Dane.
Yeah.
And
we've indirectly met,
we knew of each other back in college.
Okay.
We just wasn't fucking with each other like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
wait, you guys, you did tell me y'all weren't together.
We went to SUNY Albany.
Okay.
Again, he's 2 years older than me, so I knew of Harvey on campus because obviously, who didn't know you? He was like the founder.
Yeah, I don't know what that.
He was the founder of this fashion organization on campus that was like taken over. So everybody kind of knew who he was. He was like always like Harvey was from the very beginning, like really about fashion and everything. So I knew him through that, and we had like mutual circles. But yeah, I wasn't really like fucking on that side, so I didn't really care. In passing, I was like, oh, cool.
How did y'all come up with like the inception of like Monkey King as like that, right? Like as this is what y'all gonna do, right? Because again, like y'all, I kind of figured based off of like what the product of Monkey King looks like from every perspective, right? Yeah. Like I talked about being there, like the food, the aesthetics, right? Like everything you could tell was done with such intention and precision. And then when I found out y'all backgrounds, nano engineer, you were at
I was consulting at PwC,
right? I was like, oh, of course they were like killers back then, right? You just shifted to a different game, right? And you can truly see that in the output, right? But what made y'all fixate on like, yo, this is the thing that we're gonna go crush next?
I think if you're gonna talk about Monkey King, we have to talk about the two concepts before that, because people don't know we actually had two other concepts before. Monkey King
This is like year one.
Yeah.
This is year 1 of 5 years.
Yeah.
that we're talking about now.
So again, Harvey knew in his hearts of hearts he was meant to be an entrepreneur. He knew it like right off the bat. He wasn't going to work for himself, anybody. He wanted to open his own business and he wanted it. Harvey always knew that about himself. Where me, I never took risk. I am the oldest of my immigrant family, so like I really always followed the path of money. I really just didn't think I could take those risks and like explore my passion. I wanted to go to culinary school. I wanted to be a chef, and like my parents was like, yeah, nah, you know. So for me, I just never thought I could take risks. And I think part of that growth that I really wanted to instill in myself was like, Munzzy, you need to stop being calculated and you need to just, you know, dive into that world of unknown. So that's where like fate kind of like crossed our paths. I actually met this one in Dykeman. We met uptown as a boozy brunch. Like we had a mutual best friend, and Harvey grew up in the restaurant industry. And at the time when I quit my job, my goal was always to open a restaurant. I've always wanted to open a restaurant that highlighted Bengali cuisine on the grander scales, like Michelin style, right? So for me, like that kind of project, I knew I needed a lot of money. So for me, it was just like, yo, follow the corporate path, you know, work in the corporate for years, build your connections, save up your money, and then when you are good to take that risk, you know, so even me taking that risk was very calculated.
Yeah.
Where I think when I quit my job, I was like, you know what? Like, I told my parents I was gonna go get an MBA at Columbia. Like, that's the story I told them just to like get them off my back. And when I connected before I connected with Harvey, our mutual friend, I was like, yo, I really want to work more in the restaurant side, but like more management, and figure out like, I've always worked in the hospitality, but I really wanted to work from the other side, which is like ownership, management, what it really takes to open a business rather than maintain it. So our mutual friend was like, yo, why don't you connect with Harvey? You know, his family's in the industry. He grew up, like he could probably, you know, give you some advice. And that's where our paths cross. So I actually approached him on a networking. He thought I was trying to spit game on him. And
then like, yo, y'all talk about it, because like again, like that's like a lot of trust. Like I was like, when I first visited y'all's and then saw y'all together, I was like, yo, that's like a lot of trust to put on the person, right? Like I've like run businesses and I know how like personal and it is to like work with people, but then also like to add the element of like your like relationship in it too, right? Because it's like, yo, when you're in the trenches like working, like this shit is work, right? Yeah. And it's like,
it's all work.
But it's also like you're also developing and fostering like a relationship at the same time almost.
So for us, this past 5 years, I mean, I joke about it, but I think it's true. We were like 99% business partner and 1% boyfriend and girlfriend. And that's just because we both quit our jobs, right? And we're both the oldest. So you imagine
our first like 2.5 years, it was, I think, truly much more relationship based.
Well, I guess, yeah. The first year was like learning about each other, but at the same time, it's like both of us are on this boat where we quit our jobs. We have our parents breathing down our neck of like, what are we going to do next? And like that kind of pushed us closer to each other. And it was like, okay, well, I have interest in food. I want to open a restaurant one day. And he's like, wait, I want to open a restaurant one day too. And we both wanted to open restaurants that highlighted our mother cuisine, because we had goals that we wanted for our own communities. So it was like, let's work together and learn about what it's like to open a restaurant simultaneously, right? You work on your project, I'll work on my project. And through that, we just started cooking together. So the first project we actually did was called The Table. It was an underground dining club where we hosted 12 strangers over a course of 6 courses. And the idea was to bring people together over the love of food and just create networking opportunities. So that was our first concept. And
that really came out of, those times were probably, in my opinion, some of the purest times in our relationship, you know, like kind of, and kind of like getting into the game. There really was no, like it was almost like a no strings attached situation. You know what I mean? Like we were going through the honeymoon phase of our relationship. You know, a lot of everything that we were doing as an output for that concept was out of pure love. Like, you know, it was beyond the love of cooking and and getting to know each other, they were like, recreations of our fondest memories from, all the places we were traveling to and all the places we were eating. So while we were getting to know each other and go out on these dates and these short trips,
We were picking up skills.
yeah, we were kind of like also kind of low key doing R&D, and when we came back, it just added an extra layer to our relationship because, we were able to now kind of recreate together some of our favorite dishes and our favorite memories, and in turn also now deliver it in a finished dish to, our friends and family.
Yeah, because the first few dates was actually just us cooking together.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I like Thai food. Oh, I never had Thai food. Okay, let's see if we can teach ourselves Thai cuisine. Okay, let's go do grocery. Let's pick a recipe and let's make that. And we would practice it over and over time. So we would actually just like sharpen our skills just for us. And I would post it on social media here and there. And people are like, do you need a taste tester? Like, yo, we want to try your food. And like, to the point where I was getting so much DMs. Like, people were just like, yo, we want to try your food. And I told them, I was like, we're spending all this money to do R&D and like we're broke. Like, why not try to see if we can make some money out of it too? So I'm like,
I mean, we were going about to sign up for boot camp for coding,
programming.
right?
Really?
Yeah.
We
so
also
that was how
did
it
like
started.
program. We were also doing like people don't understand like before the Monkey King, we were just signing up to all the different like activities where we can like build a skill around because I wanted to become a hacker, so I was like, yo, I'm looking at programming. Again, I didn't think I was gonna open a restaurant as quickly as we did. None of us had a plan. People think that like we had these plans of opening a restaurant, which we did, but they were like
They're almost like pipe dreams.
yeah, they're like 10, 15-year dreams, not like
I think that's why it's like so cool, right? Because like the resiliency it takes to break through that part of it. Because I think that's where most people, like most creators, and like that's why I wanted y'all to share like that story from this part, right? Because that resiliency piece is the part that most people we lose, right? Like we're there like, oh, one day I'm gonna open a restaurant. One day I'm gonna break into the mainstream. One day, whatever, right? And then they like cook, like they just mindlessly like wander and like do explore, but then they get discouraged and like stop. By continuously
just staying on top of it, like fate just lined everything up for us, right? Because when we finally started doing the underground dining clubs, right? I think within 2-3 months we were getting booked out.
Yeah, we were. I mean, because I think there was like the initial excitement of our friend circle wanting to support a new concept, right? And us respectively and us together as a couple, but. Like, don't be fooled. Like, that got burned out quick. You know what I mean? Like, the friend circle could only come and support you. If we were doing it like almost like 4 or 5 times a week. You know what I mean? So, like...
And we would like hit up all our friends like, yo.
Even at the price that we were charging, I think we first started.
We charged $65 for 6 courses.
Yeah.
Which is
and
like.
we're busting our ass doing it.
And we're spending like 3 days prior planning and prepping and so like the amount of time and labor that's going into it, we were not even making anything, but you have to start like that. You have to invest. And that's
where again, like back to like where you like lose people in like the journey part of it. It's like, yo, when you're doing that and then the initial support dry off, it's like, yo, what gets me to go back and do it again, right? Exactly. Like go back and continue to do it now that it's like no longer quote unquote, it was never easy, but getting somebody, now it's like another barrier to this thing, right? And like now like, yo, y'all are doing the dinner series.
We did the dinner. So people don't even realize, we started in the trenches. Like we would get this community center in Lower East Side. It was like the only, because venues are expensive. And when you're starting out with your new passion, like there's so many overhead costs that makes it really even hard for anybody that wants to make a career out of it. Like you have to understand, like the first 6 months to a year, you're really not gonna make anything. You're just investing that time. You're putting your time into it. So we would get this venue for 4 hours. It was the best rate. We got it for $100. It's bare bone, and we would cook.
It was a daycare center.
It was a daycare center, but during the nighttime it's empty. So we're like, okay, $100 for 4 hours, like. We can work with that.
Yeah.
And we would cook everything at like his apartment, and we would pack everything, like 6 courses. We're cooking everything, pre-prepping, and then we put it on this trolley car, which we still have now in our restaurant, because that's like our start of everything. And we would haul all our equipment, all our food from one building to another building. and then set up. In 4 hours, we had to set up the venue, we had to cook our 6 courses, we had to host, create a vibe, and then we had to unpack, wash dishes, pack up, everything, all in 4 hours. So we would be busting ass. Like,
Bro, like that's like that in the trenches like times where like again like Harvey said, like that's when it's like the most pure, right?
Yeah.
When it's like, yo, like I'm doing like this shit is burning money.
Yep.
It's ass to do, right? Like it's a struggle and I'm still doing it. What other than love gets you to do those things and sign up for those things, right? Like nothing.
Yeah.
That's true.
Because like now it's like different, right? Like now y'all got opportunities, cash flow,
We
right?
have teams, you know,
right?
so-
It's a little bit different. It's like, okay, like now, but again, you lose people in the trenches section of the journey, right? Because you're like, everybody wants to get to the phase that y'all at now,
Yeah.
right? The opportunities are flowing your way.
But you
right?
got to put in the time. Nothing comes easy. You have to. If there's one thing I've learned is like, if you just put your head down and you put in your time on your work, and that's why I was like commending you, because I was like, yo, you really like pulled up to the scene out of nowhere, and then you just straight killed it. But the reason why you're killing it is because you got that
We're saying
consistency.
out of nowhere, but we, like, you know.
Oh, we're not on social
we
like
need
that.
to interview you on a podcast and
No,
like,
but-
hear about
but-
your story, bro.
No, but again, like what y'all talking about is like real, right? Like it's like everybody thinks that it's like now, right? But realistically, it's like,
you know
yo,
how many years behind the scenes?
yo,
Yeah.
like y'all said, y'all did 2 iterations, right?
Yeah.
I had 3.
She was just
this is
telling
my
you had
third
like a
this is
podcast
my
right
third
before.
podcast, right?
Yeah.
So now, like when I am putting in money and doing like a larger scale thing, I have some of the skill set that I learned and fucked up
You've
on
gone
a cheaper
through it.
level, right? Like, and again, like as the journey continues, I'm sure y'all know even at the level that y'all playing at now, there is other things to learn.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think what you see at Monkey King now, it's the summary of 2 concepts, because Atelier was year 1, 2019. And then we met in February of 2000. This is how fast everything moved. We met in February of 2019. By April, because that's our anniversary date, that was our first dinner that we hosted.
Yeah.
And then we signed our space in December. So things moved really aggressive for us, right? Because
Yeah.
once we found our space, we were like, okay, like this is the space. We want to start we want to start the next chapter in this location, which is now Monkey King. But even when pandemic happened, and we'll go more into details, when that was paused, our second concept, which was called Atelier, actually was in our apartment. We moved into Bushwick to be closer to the restaurant, and we, rather than making our apartment into a home, we converted the whole apartment into an event space, because we were like, yo, if we can't host at the restaurant because construction, everything's paused, we're going to just start doing hosting in our apartment. And compared to the old venue where we were on other people's time, this is our own space. So everything that we learned from the year 1 of trial and tribulation, by year 2, we were like, okay, we have our own space, we already have a flow, but these are the things we can now tweak, because we have that control. And like kind of like what you're saying, like this is your 3rd podcast, but you've gone through it to know exactly what you need for this 3rd iteration to go really smooth. So
Isn't
yeah.
it beautiful the way that the things that you learned are so like connected to what you're doing now, right? Like because y'all got to learn, I always say like you have to be able to do everything in your process, right? Like you can't manage a team on service without understanding service. You can't manage a team on food without understanding food. You don't got to be the expert in the room.
You just need to know.
You got to
need
know it, right? And y'all doing it again, like ground level, like you probably having to do the service, right? Like y'all having to cook the food, right? Like getting intimate understanding of it before you go into like full owner mode,
Yeah.
right? Like I would love to just show up and be like, yo, I'm just like the host and that's it, right? Yeah. And like I just run the business, but I have to understand all the little things that go into this. Otherwise, I can't even know what I'm like looking for, right? That's with the team being 2 people. I can't even imagine what it looks like now. How many employees is Monkey King?
Yeah. I mean, we're like right under 20.
Right?
I mean, to this day, I mean, like we're both a firm believer in, in order for you kind of be an effective leader, you have to be an even more effective follower, or a team member. Like I think to be able to, again, like to be able to, I think, what's worked in our favor, to this day, and something that we kind of still stick to, at our space, is the fact that, we're never going to ask any of our team members to do anything that we're not willing
We're
to do.
personally not going to do ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, like, so like, even during service, even though we've been privileged enough now to kind of, step away from the restaurant, so early on, and and entrust a lot of our responsibilities of ownership to,
Our team.
our team and a group of individuals that have literally generally started with us and have rose to the occasion, have vocalized the fact that they want to do more and see a future in the vision of ours, our collective vision now.
But that's also because
Yo.
that team have seen us bust our ass
Yeah.
with them side by side. Like we purposely wouldn't hire more servers on the floor and would just help them just so they can pocket. Like our team knows that from everything that when it comes to service, we structured our whole front of house just to make sure that they feel like they're
I'm saying it with the back of
supportive
house.
and back of house too.
Our whole back of house, we don't, a lot of restaurants, they'll cut, if it's slow, they'll cut part of their chefs or whatever the case is. Like, nah, like we keep our whole staff on,
Yeah.
literally the entire time. The
Our
entire
team knows
week.
that we always look out in their
Yeah.
best interest, which is why they're so dedicated to our vision. Because they say they're like, nowhere I've worked where the owners are on the floor, bussing tables, wiping, doing this with us. And at the end of the day, like we don't have to because we're not making any of the money, but we're doing that because we care and we want to make sure they're good. And I've always said it, like we rather hire a small team of Avenger. Like we want to create an Avengers team, assassins in their own lane, but when we come together, we're this like indestructible force to be reckoned with. Like our team recognizes that and they appreciate that. They're like, most places would just oversaturate the team. That way, people get 1 or 2 shifts because you want to
we
look
really
for
focus on
cover.
the culture.
Yeah.
I think the extension of these decisions, was rooted from the fact that we wanted to, I think, implement a strong sense of identity in the space and a strong sense of culture that people can embody, when they join us.
And also changes, sorry.
No, I was gonna say I think that's like an important thing for y'all to like. I'm sure y'all think about it. Like a lot of the culture is like y'all, right? Like the things that you're able to go out outside of like the restaurant and execute, right? But while also still executing on everything in between, right? Like the culture from I was saying y'all. I knew y'all were gonna body like the dress because I like a little bit was talking about girl. I was like, some people come here and they take it seriously. Like I know which ones, right? And it's because like the culture that you're describing, building an Avengers. That's the y'all, right? Like it's like, y'all are assassins, so like why would I not have a bunch of assassins around me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like why wouldn't the culture of this be exactly what it is? Cool assassins, right? Like that's the culture of y'all, that's essentially the essence of Monkey King under it. Also within all of y'all backgrounds. That's an additional part of the entire culture, right? The fact that y'all built in like, all the savagery and all y'all your background, your ethnicities, like your nationalities, right? All within one space. And to have that be like a love letter kiss to what it is, that's truly what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a capstone on 2 iterations. It's a capstone, again, not that y'all are finished, but a capstone on y'all relationship. It's like literally a physical thing that produces that.
Like the space, honestly, it grows as we grow as individuals. You know what I mean? Like I think that's what we kind of communicated to. We have such a young team.
All of our team members are actually not from New York, and we actually
not all of them.
Majority
Yeah,
of them
majority.
are not from New York, and purposely we kind of like went down that route because again we're brave enough to take this first step into figuring our dreams. And honestly, majority of the individuals that are from our team are all from small towns that came to New York with a dream, and a goal, and they were brave enough to take that first step, right? So for us, like our space operates on energy and how we all move, right? So it's very important for me to hire those individuals rather than the ones that are in New York City, just because it's like, I see a little bit of me in you.
Because what's more New York than that?
Yeah,
Just
'cause
pulling up with a good dream and just making it
trying
happen.
to make it so you're just as hungry as us.
Yeah.
And here we have an opportunity, and if you see the vision that we see, then we can all win together. And it has worked for us. So to the point where majority of our team right now is all out of state, and they all appreciate that each one of us collectively are trying to make our dreams happen, but we're all doing it together as a team too. And I think just being able to like also feed into their goals, they feel appreciated and they feel supported. And I think it just, again, it's a mutual love that you share when you're trying to build a community together.
Nah, for sure. I think like that's like when you talk about it, like that truly is to me like the identity of like New York, right? Like it's like I always say like a fisherman sees like another fisherman, right?
Yeah.
Like a savage sees like another savage from afar, and that's the only thing that like you just see it and you just like tip the cap and keep doing your thing, right? Like that's like that to me, like, and especially when you find like the other ones that are just like you and are willing to move in the singular direction with you, like that's like
You want to keep them close. You'd be like, okay, like we could do a lot of great things
we could
together.
do a lot of great things together, right? It's just finding like, like, do you have the same thing in me
Yeah.
that I want in you, right? Because back to like, yo, like the intimacy of like doing business with people, like you truly see that, right? Like you were talking about it like earlier, like in the first stages of your relationship, I'm sure that's adding another depth to like, again, building a relationship is intimate. Building a business or doing business with people is another level of intimacy, right? And to bring that together, because you see everything. Like if you work with me, you see a lot of a certain part of my personality. If you are close to me, like relationship wise, you see a whole other side.
Too.
If you're doing both, you see everything.
Yeah.
You see my bad, you see my anger, you see all of it, right? Because like I care about this, right? Like you're gonna see it. Like I would love to hear y'all opinions on this. Like I have a hard time like separating out the two, right? Like because it's not like my girl's like building this with me.
Yeah.
But like I gotta remember when this shit is like stressful, that this is like this part of my life that is stressful. But of course she gonna see all of it, right? Like when the money fucked up and like and I'm back against the wall, like you gonna see it.
Yeah.
When I'm good, you gonna see it. Like it's so, again, right? Like this is like what y'all do 24/7, 365. Of course it's gonna seep into like who y'all are, y'all thoughts, right? Like have y'all like, again, like I'm sure by now y'all have figured out like practices, strategies to kind of like navigate that, right? Like as you go.
I mean, it's constantly, like just like with business, our emotions, everything's always ebbing and flowing, right? So, we are constantly trying to figure out, a more proactive way of communicating. I think that's something that we still struggle with. For sure, like because we're both such incredibly passionate individuals, and oftentimes when you're kind of, I think locked in your respective lane, even within the same organization, it's easy to get carried away in your own respective contributions and your own efforts. That without a regular check-in, it becomes difficult sometimes to articulate all the things that we respectfully have been doing towards a similar goal. So that's something that we are still very much so kind of working
He gave
through.
you the polished response. He gave you the polished response.
No, but that's real, and I think like that's where we like lose it. Like let's like to call it for what it really is, right? Like like this is something you passionate about, right?
So to call it for what it really is, we just celebrated our 5-year anniversary, and this is the first time that we're actually pouring into our relationship. And that's just being transparent, just because when we first started, again, we're oldest, we quit our job. There was a lot of pressure on us to figure out what we're gonna do next. We have our parents breathing down our neck. We're going from money to no money, and then we also take care of some the financial burden in our households too. So at that time, like we really just didn't have time to focus on ourselves or our relationship, but we did have this like mutual conversation. And I remember like I told him, I was like, yo, if I have to pick between the restaurant or our relationship, I'm gonna pick the restaurant. And he was like, I'm so happy you said that, because I'm gonna pick the restaurant too. So that was our mentality going into it. And I think that's why we kind of survived the pandemic. Like we managed to, we went through this scenario that no one in a million years thought would ever happen, right? And that's the pandemic, right? So it's already hard enough opening a restaurant in New York City, and we're doing it as first timer, where we're the underdogs, and we're going into an industry that was so deeply impacted. So people were just looking at us left and right like we're crazy. Like, you guys got no experience, no skin in the game, and you want to do this going to
skin in the game.
Well, skin in the game, but like
the fact that we.
Yeah, but just more like you want to do this now, like you think this is the time. So for us, we just needed to just go through it and just come out on the other side. And now that 5 years in, Monkey King celebrating its 1-year anniversary, us being able to kind of enjoy some of the fruits of our hard-earned, labor, now is the time where we're really just trying to focus on our self-care and self-love, but also pour into the relationship. Because for us, I like, we communicate now, and we're talking more about like our conversation is like we're hitting a new level of pressure, new problems. Like, it's a whole new, like every time you level up, it's a whole new set of responsibilities. It's a whole new territory that you got to navigate. We're all doing this for the first time, so we just always have new problems. And for us, it's like, for us to be able to maximize this momentum that we're in, but also thrive and come out of it, we really need to focus on ourselves. And that also means focus on our relationship. So yeah, this is the first time we're actually making more time for, the relationship and our personal time. So we're just starting it.
it's important that like y'all like identify those like periods in y'all lives too, right? Because like again, like what you said in the beginning, like yo, it is like in the trenches when you're in full on survival mode, right?
You can't worry about a relationship. Like
this shit is like not to hyper like it's like a hyperbole, but like this shit is like war, right? Like that's what the time that like people don't realize. Like my roommate asked me the other day, it's like, yo, y'all got any vacations planned this year? And I felt bad. Like I'm looking at my girl and I feel bad, and I'm like, fuck no. Like you realize like I am like in the trenches, like trying to keep this shit like afloat, right? Like you think I have to, like I would love to, right? And again, like my girl's amazing, so she understands that, but it is a struggle. But now because y'all have again the opportunity and y'all have worked your way to it, now it's about, yo, this is like a marathon. Like y'all want to do this for another 25, 30, however many years y'all want to do this, but to make it sustainable, it's reinvesting into like self.
Yeah.
But that in wartime, when it's like really survival time, like you don't got
we
the
have
luxury
to like flip
do
the
that.
switch now.
Yeah.
We're like, wait, it's not about the restaurant. It's actually about us, because we are what the restaurant is. So we have to make sure we're good first, or everything else around us is gonna go in shambles. And again, we're in a relationship and we're in business. Like I pray to God and you never mix the two, but if you do, you need to have a partner that's intellectually, emotionally very mature and also very supporting. And I think we do a really great job of that, but we're trying to figure out how we could do a better job.
No, what you said is important. Like because I always like, I make it like hippie by saying like, yo, I feel like when like me and my family on the outs or me and my girl on the outs, right? Like I feel like the business suffers, right? And I like conflate the two, but to a degree it is, because it's like, yo, when I'm not good,
Nothing else is good.
I'm not firing on this the way that I'm supposed to. Like my like last spot, I looked up and I was like, damn, I've been on autopilot like the last like month and a half. Like every episode I like watched it back and I was like, damn, I really put this shit on autopilot. And it's because it's like, yo, I had a bunch of other stressors in life and I was like, oh, like that's why. Like it seeps into the product, right? It seeps into like, for y'all, like, yo, if y'all not good and y'all missing things, it seeps into the team, it seeps into the final product, right? And you see that so much more like tangibly.
It's magnified for you because you're doing it every day.
Right. And yeah, and when it's like a physical thing, like we all came from like corporate backgrounds, right? We're individual contributors to like a much larger thing. But when the thing is you and you have a miss, that miss like reverberates throughout the entire thing, right? When you got a miss at like your corporate 9 to 5, you're like, okay, like I dropped the ball, but there's so many safeguards in place.
Yeah, here you got no safe. You are the safeguard. You got to make sure
The buck stop with you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like I have like nightmares like where I'm like, damn, like what if we accidentally like book a guest and then we don't have the studio booked? I eat that. Like my integrity, my all of that, I eat that, right? The buck has to stop. I can't be like, oh, like yo, the sauce forgot to book it. Like nah, like it has to stop with me. And like that is so much more tangible when it's your thing and your name and your face on the product, right? Because the brand of Monkey King is so big. But again, like everybody is always going to associate it with y'all names, right? Because y'all staked it like that too.
We
No, I
actually
think
trying
we're
to
actually
change that.
we're trying to change
Yeah?
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I don't think we're trying to make it much more of a brand. And I think that we both do believe that a brand shouldn't be tied to one or two or multiple individuals, right? I think like the whole purpose of we're doing this as an homage to kind of our families and their struggles and all of the other immigrant families that have a similar upbringing and experience. But overall, like the highest act of inspiration, and the highest human act is to inspire, and I think that.
It makes sense that it's starting with us.
It has to start with us. We
but-
have to be the example, but we need to be able to cultivate the next generation.
Yeah. And
Of
for us,
leaders.
it's like we want to phase out of it. We never wanted Monkey King to be like, when you think Monkey King, it's Munzzy and Harvey. Like we're at a point, like it had to start with Munzzy and Harvey, right? Because our story of what we did, where we come from, and what is very tied to our brand mission, and everything embodies of who we are as individual. But again, we're trying to cultivate this cultural hub space that attracts other individuals just like us. For us, we want Monkey King to be a symbol of hope that, look, even if you don't have a plan or you don't have the resources or you just don't know how like you don't know where to start, all that matters is that you take that first step. And then if there's a will, there's a way. You'll figure it out. Because again, we're opening a restaurant for the first time. There's no manual on how to open a restaurant in New York City, let alone come out during the pandemic and then thrive. You just got to go through it, right? So for us, it was like everyone that supported us when our own family didn't support us. And for us to get to this point, we want Monkey King to be that space that can bridge the gap and inspire others, but also be a support, system for other individuals. We're having this unique space where we're getting to tap into so many talented guests and, our extended Monkey King family. And it's like, okay, well, we're meeting so many passionate individuals. And it's like, okay, we need to like help. When we see another individual just like us, we think about all our struggles and everything we have gone through. All it takes is one person to help you open another set of doors of opportunities. If it wasn't for all the individuals that helped open doors of opportunities, you wouldn't know who Monkey King is. Like we don't have marketing, we don't have PR. Like everything is all like in-house. But those come from like these opportunities of people that believed in us. And we just want to be able to do the same for other individuals that we believe in too. And we're like, yo, they're moving just like us. They care about their passion. They don't care about like how hard it gets. They're gonna like commit and they're gonna see it to the end. And when you see that energy and you resonate with it, and that's what we were talking about earlier, it's like when you see another one just like you want to make sure you help them and you just help them make their dreams happen, because those are strangers doing it for us. So
I think that's why when people talk about like community, right? Like we always think about like it's just like ethnicity, right? Yeah. Community is truly just like your
energy.
It's your people. It's your energy.
Yeah,
right?
we're in New York City. Like
it's like the energy that you see, right? Like what you're talking about. Like that's everybody that you're looking for in your community. Like who you're speaking for, who you're like. Like I said it before, like Monkey King is like a love letter, right? Monkey King is like really like a love letter to y'all community, right? Yeah. Like y'all put it on for y'all community, because I hear it. Like I always assume before I even ask people on, like I gotta believe that they really believe in the thing that they're doing, and like you could tell again based off of the details, based off of everything Monkey King is. Like obviously y'all love it, right? But like even to hear y'all like talk about it and hear like the passion in y'all voices and the way y'all move around, which opportunities you guys are hitting, right? Like I can tell, right? Like yo, like they have real genuine love for the community. Like it's bigger than just this is a restaurant and this makes money, right? Like you could see that. And
you said it best. Like through this project, we realized the indirect responsibility that we have now, not to be a voice for our generation, but to amplify our generation's voice. So it's not really about us. It's never been about Harvey or Munzzy. It's always been us putting out for our community. Like it started with me wanting to do something for the Bengali community.
The table atelier was about us. You know what I mean? Like our first iterations, where it was truly, I think, an interest. But the moment it became much more public facing, as much positive feedback as we've gotten, like we've also gotten, negative feedback, and I think like at the end of the day, like, we're just very proud of being able to wear almost like our heart on our sleeves, like in the form of this restaurant, this concept, and we're deeply, deeply like, I think grateful to be able to be in a position to do that. And, like you said, inherently so, we kind of, over the years, we kind of realized that, beyond what we represent for ourselves from an identity perspective, by just simply having a public-facing product or concept in the form of brick and mortar or a service or whatever the case is, we realized that, we were also speaking for a lot of people that, the other Asian Americans, Chinese Americans, Bengali Americans, that
share their story and
that share the story and
where we're coming from.
And like, so a lot of the stereotypes, for example, like a lot of the stereotypes that we address with our space or try to address with our space, these were things that were reinforced by, concepts before us.
Yeah.
And now we're trying to kind of like address that with our space to kind of change, open a new perspective or a new conversation, or discussion amongst, our guests, and amongst our community, so that, the people after us will have something to be proud of.
Yeah.
I told you when I visited, right? I was like, yo, like, because you were saying like the criticism, like halami, whatever, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yo, like, because what Harvey's saying is like so true, because it's going to be intrinsic, like that conversation, those conversations, who y'all are, the identities y'all speak for, are going to be so intrinsic to just back to the essence of the restaurant. I said it. I don't want to go to like, yo, I love Shagar. I don't want to go to Shagar 2.0. Like I really don't have any crave for that. What my identity wants is something like Monkey King.
And that's why we say Monkey King is our representation of children of immigrants growing up in New York City.
I want to go to a spot that I think is cool, decorated well, I could catch a vibe, right? Like, it's so like I went in and I immediately felt like comfortable. Right, like it didn't feel like one of these like random restaurants that like I'll just go to in the city, and it's like, oh, it don't feel like I would like kick it here, right? Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, like I came in and I was like, oh, like I would just like chill here, right? Like actually like
It's a vibe.
everything from like the music to like the drink, the food. I was like, oh, I would just like vibe here,
In
right?
the crowd.
Right. But it feels
It feels like you.
It feels
Yeah.
like it feels like a home, right? Like when people always talk about it, like they overblow that. Like, oh, I want to build a space for my community. I want to build a space for my community. A true space for your community will feel like that's home,
Yeah.
right? Like they'll feel like, yo, like this is like, and I think even down to like the level of service, everything is just like, oh, immediately screams that, right? Like everything from the interior just feels like a space that's safe. Right. And like people over say that, like, oh, they throw events at all these spaces, be like, oh, we created a safe space for our community. But like what a true safe space for your community is one that instantly you go in and it's like, oh, this feels like home.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's what we say. Like, this is not another restaurant. This is our home. You come with respect, you leave with respect. And I think Monkey King's secret sauce is the energy that's in that space. Like the energy from our team to our guest. Like even though coming out of like all the financial burdens that we have coming out of during the pandemic, if it means saying no to a customer that's difficult and that's treating our team with not respect, we have no problem turning them down. Because at the end of the day, we understand like hospitality is a selfless job. Everyone here is trying to accommodate the next person. And that means you have to be selfless, right? And what happens in this industry, like the restaurant industry has a toxic, side to it where guests treat the workers like they're not human. Just like the simple dining etiquettes. And us working in the restaurant industry, while we were in college and whatever, we've got to experience these things. And for us, when we said that we were going to open this restaurant, we wanted to tackle conversations and issues that are in our minority respective communities, but then also at the same time, we want to address the toxic issues that come out of the restaurant industry, whether it's teaching guests dining etiquette, how to tip properly, speaking up for our team. If we have like a difficult customer, I don't believe the customer is always correct, always right. And like if you try to practice your entitlement at our space and it's not like within our policy and stuff, we'll respectfully, decline it and just tell you to dine somewhere else, because it's not worth upsetting my team, who then has to go take care of other guests and then put on this face. Like, we don't put on a face. Like, this is something we generally do from the heart. I can teach you all the technical stuff, but I can't teach you at the end of the day how to be a genuine, good human being. And that's what hospitality is. It's taking care of others and, putting them before yourself. And that's what we practice at Monkey King. We genuinely try to practice that in all parts of our life.
I think that's why I like, the essence of y'all inside like the culture, like, because all of the things that you're describing, they're like
part of our culture too.
Part of like y'all culture, right? But like part of like probably who y'all are as people, like the things that you're standing on for your establishment and the things that you probably stand for in your personal lives with friends, family, right?
Like our foundational cornerstones.
Are the foundational cornerstones of who y'all are, right? People always like cite to me like, oh, like it's just business, right? Like you shouldn't take that personally, right? And I'm all like, nah, because I know how my business operates, and it's a true reflection of
who you
me.
are. Harvey, say hit your quote.
But,
How you do one thing?
I feel like you should say
No, it's cool. Go ahead.
we always
He
say that.
hit me with this line early on when we first started, and I never forgot it. And I think who I am today is because of that one line that you always preach.
No, but like how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're cutting corners on one side, then like you're just generally a person that's cutting corners. So like I remember when I first started doing things, he was just like, yo, you got to stay consistent. And I remember I would have that like written, and I would just try to practice. Like how you do one thing is how you do everything. And it goes in all parts of your life. So for us being in hospitality, it doesn't stop when we leave Monkey King. That's in our home, that's outside, it's everywhere.
And you see like that's so evident again in like the restaurant industry, right? Because how many restaurants do we know where it's like, yo, you go one time and it's good, right? You go another time, it's a completely different taste. And how much of that is, again, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? The way that you prep, the way that you mentally prep, the way that you run your service, like everything has to have some sort of quality control and consistency, right?
Yep.
Like if you don't have like a process that you can establish and complete, I used to always like give it up to like, oh, like I'm just spacey, and I'm all like, and I just used to chalk it up like, oh, I'm creative and I'm spacey. Here's the thing, if I'm creative and I'm spacey, you're going to see it in the whatever the product here is. Like, I can't just chalk it up to that, right? Like, if y'all just said like, oh, I'm not gonna like make my bed and it's like gonna be messy, it's probably
you're probably gonna go back to the restaurant and be like, okay, there's crumbs and stuff. Let's save it for the next day. Like, you know, we make sure. Like, I think even when we first started like cooking underground, we used to make sure like we would make sure like even our underground dining clubs and atelier that we used to do at our home, we'd move like we were in a restaurant. Like, even though that's the comfort of our house and our home, we still made sure like this was not, we treated like it was in our space. So that meant like,
yeah, I mean, it was a constant reinforcement of your actions, right?
Yep.
You know, of your habits. So I think that was the main objective of us trying to constantly, like, we didn't have the privilege of, as many things as we had the privilege of doing, we also didn't have the privilege of following a more conventional and conservative route, you know, where it was like, all right, culinary school or stage, you know, or you know, bar back or whatever the case is, you know, that would, I think, more immediately contribute to our growth within the industry, along with like kind of like direct mentorship or an example through other concepts. We didn't really have that privilege just because of timing and you know, and our situation. So I think one of the things that we were constantly like trying to do with more awareness, right, was the fact that, you know, like when Munzzy said, we were trying to constantly put ourselves in a restaurant setting. How will we handle this in a restaurant setting when we did have one? Let's move that way.
yeah,
And
even
that's
if
how
we're tired, there's you washed all the dishes, you want to leave the forks behind. No, we gotta clean. Everything needs to be spotless. Like, even if you're tired, like, you just gotta, if you were working at a restaurant, they wouldn't care if you were tired or not. They want the job done. So we would just make sure, like, and again, as entrepreneurs, you need to have that discipline. You have to build that discipline. I think discipline is like, once you master discipline, like, you unlock the truest potential within yourself. So us, just when you quit your job, you don't really have anybody holding you accountable. You have to hold yourself accountable. So I think we were just trying to push ourselves to operate in a way where we knew it would help us down the line.
You just gotta have love for the game. You know what I mean? Like, the game for us just happens to be, you know, the F&B industry. You know, like, I love it. You know,
Yeah.
like this doesn't really seem like work to me. You know, like there are bad days and there's good days. You know, but you know, at the end of it, like,
I picked
for
the
me
game.
personally for me, you know, like, the game was the game. You know, like you know, if I'm gonna have, again, like, one day we might not make money. You know, but this is a marathon. You know, so we just straight up charge it to the game.
You always
know?
have to charge. You have to charge it to the game, right? Because like sometimes I'd be like, "Oh, I chose this life." Like I had a guest.
privilege.
I had a guest last week tell me he's like more or less. He said it in the nicest way because that's the homie, right? But he was like more or less like, "Bro, like stop bitching. Like you get the privilege to create." And I had to like really look at him and be like, "Yo, you're right. Like this is what I wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
Like yo, so what? The money fucked up like in this one spot, right? Like I decided to do it. Nobody put a gun to my head and was like, "Yo, do this." Like we came from like again like backgrounds and households where that was like a majority of our lives. Like, oh, I could blame it. I could blame, oh, I had to do this because you told me I had to do this, right?
Yeah.
But now in this arena, bro, I have to charge it to the level of the game, right? Because nobody else is making me do this. People are telling me not to.
Like literally not that long ago, you were probably just conceptualizing this pod, right? You were just like, damn, yo, one day I'm gonna have my own space, or one day like I'm gonna have, you know, this team, and now you have that, you know, and bro, you gotta be, I think you have to like practicing gratitude and I think being aware of the privilege of your current situation. It was incredibly important.
They always talk about like how when people used to watch Kobe practice, right? He practiced like as if he was in the game. He's running like full sprint practices, right? Just himself. And he's just like, yo, when it's game time, when it's Monkey King and not my first iteration or my second iteration, when it's time to play at this level, yo, have I put in the reps at like at that level? Because it doesn't get easier. Yeah. Right, the pressures, like y'all are saying, have only increased over time, right? Like those things, it's like, yo, y'all cooking for y'all friends, right? Yeah. You fuck up,
yeah, it's
not
fine.
the biggest deal in the world.
Now you open your doors to the whole world, and like, you know, you're saying like, yo, I've been hearing about you guys, and like a lot of our friends, you're like, yo, we're seeing Monkey King on the scene. Like people are just chatting, they're like, yo, Monkey King, and we're just looking at each other. We're like, oh shit, like. This is what we worked so hard for. This is our moment. Like we're about, like I've been saying it for the last 3-4 months. The floodgates have been leaking and we purposely haven't opened it up yet just because we want to be mentally and physically ready for that. But the floodgates have been leaking. Like the word's out, people knowing about us and everything that we worked so hard for. Now it's starting to show. And I think one of our fears is like we don't want to be one of those overhyped spot. Like you see it all the time. Oh, like it's a trend. Social media makes it the hype spot, and then people come in with, everyone want to come in as a critique, and everyone wants to say something, right? So we just need to make sure that everything
we put out is at the best stage of the ability that we can output. Like we're not gonna, like, we're obviously, again, like we don't come from a conservative background, a traditional background of like within this industry, and I think that's one of the blessings of the F&B industry. It takes everybody, as long and you could play at any level as long as you have the monetary funds to do that, and I think we just want to feel like we've output every piece of our energy and our passion every day as much as we can into our space, into our concept, into our team, into the vision, so that even if we do get criticism, like we can look at it and be like, and determine if it generally is something that we could generally work on, or if it's just bullshit, and be like, all right, like I think it's good enough right now, and being okay with it being good enough.
That we put everything.
Yeah, as long as we put everything into it. If like the criticisms, the feedback and the criticism only hurts when you read it and you feel like, I could have focused more on that piece. You know what I mean? Like I remember we got one comment on one dish that we had that I knew was like needed work. And we ended up getting a bad review on it.
Which
like
one was this?
It was our fried rices early on. It was one of the other dishes was our beef chow fun. We were running a current recipe iteration of it, and we knew that it was missing something. We knew that it was good for what it was, but then at that time we had to determine that there were a lot of other more pressing matters that we need to tend to, and that for the most part the feedback was, all right, this is it's acceptable, and we were okay with moving that way, But then when we saw that review, when I saw it personally, I was like,
you took it personally.
I took it personally because I was like, damn, like they're literally calling out the same exact things that we could have worked on, and literally the next day, I was locked in.
But the thing is that right?
Yeah.
Like I always say, the comments that bother me the most is like, oh, how many likes he said, and I take that personally. Those are the only ones I really respond to, where I'm like, yo,
you want to improve on
valid,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I know that about my gap, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, going into the gym and putting in the work to do it, right? You knew that the dish might have been not
you didn't
to
give it your 100.
right?
Yeah.
But it's like going back and figuring it out, because that's, again, we're in this like race, right, where it's like, entrepreneurs, founders, where everything is a problem, everything is a fire drill, and it's like, I just have to give this my attention right now. And it's, again, the consistency of going through each day and constantly, because again, as soon as you finish one task, the next one comes.
Yep.
Right.
The fires never stop.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it
They
was also
never
like picking
stop.
up the experience. Like I think we technically we lacked the technical experience and knowledge on how to address that issue at that time.
Yeah.
Especially with cooking.
We're two people. We're two people doing everything. So
As much as we love to eat out, as much as we are practicing at home, there's still like a high learning curve for us, in terms of us being better cooks and better chefs, right? So
and then producing it at a restaurant where you're doing
real time.
volume.
And when we're not, it's one thing if we were just a cook, and or just a chef that
Just
our main
focus on
focus
those.
is just cooking, and we could just direct our entire time and energy just towards that one lane, is not the case for us. I think that's part of
We're the
what makes it so
GM, we're the
special.
bar manager, we're the chefs, we're the marketing,
Yeah.
we're PR, we're doing everything, and we're just two people, right? So, yeah.
Like you said though, like it happens like when it's supposed to happen, right?
Exactly.
Like you said, like the floodgates were opening. You probably weren't ready for it to completely open until the moment that's happening now.
Even
right?
now, we're just like, the floodgates are opening, and now we're forcing, like what we were telling you earlier,
Yeah.
we're like, now we need to focus on maybe expanding within the space now, because there is a demand right now. Before there wasn't a demand. And now because there's a higher demand, now our team is going to operate on new levels that they never operated in, which means if we
So
were
it's
to...
getting the team acclimated.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
our chefs, our team. So that means like if we don't get them acclimated to this new level of busy, then the quality will,
Will inherently drop.
Exactly. So before that floodgates open, we need to make sure all our processes, all our systems can be up to date and can handle this new level. Because again, the fear is people are going to come with high expectations, ready to shred us to pieces, and if we don't deliver, that's
I don't even think it's necessarily even that
I'm
perspective.
a little aggressive
You know
on
what I mean?
that.
I think overall is trying to offer an experience that we're proud of.
No,
Right?
and here's the thing, like y'all will continue to rise, right? Because those challenges aren't gonna stop. Like we talked a little bit last time about like, I've heard y'all plans like post like Monkey King, right? And those challenges are gonna just continue to keep on coming. But the thing is like y'all just gonna keep on rising to them, right? Like that is the game that we signed up for, right? I think we're wrapping up, but Harvey, Munz, appreciate y'all doing this. I end every pod with a segment called Call Your Shot. Essentially, it's like my version of goal setting, manifesting. The idea is like it's something next 3 years, 5 years, whatever time period y'all feel comfortable sharing, something y'all are going to make happen. The idea being we record it. When y'all go ahead and do it, I'm gonna go send it to y'all and be like, look at what y'all
That's
Oh,
so
cute.
So, y'all call your shot.
no, you go first.
No,
Not it. Go ahead.
man. I think like short-term wise for us, I think is really just kind of recouping our initial investment. Getting, like we're fortunate enough to be busy at such an early phase, in this whole concept, and I think like just being booked out for every single day that we're open, and operating generally. I think executing on the full vision of what Monkey King was meant to be.
That's your short term or and long term?
It was a short term, yeah.
What about your long term?
Man, we're gonna have to stay for another pod for.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about that.
I think you kind of hit it. I think it's just like making sure we get Monkey King to hit the potential it has, and for us, Monkey King is our stepping stone into the world, right? Again, we were the underdogs. No one believed in us, so we put our whole heart, blood, sweat, and tears into this project because we know this platform is going to open the doors to all the other ideas that we want to do. So whether it's fashion, entertainment, experiences, another concept, like we have it all within our roadmap, and I guess time will tell.
I love it. Guys, appreciate y'all as people. Appreciate what you guys have done with Monkey King. Like I can't express how important it is for me long term to have places like Monkey King, right? Like I want there to be a bunch of places that we can eat, drink, feel comfortable at, right?
I'm sure with the family too.
The crazy things that you're saying that, and I think that was one of the big, like for example, even like you were at the Bengali New Year situation that we had. We threw like that. I don't think that was ever thrown before, like in New York in a manner like that. I think like with it being vocalized at the level it was. Through through social media and through our recaps, other Bengalis, are going to probably see that and be like, damn, we gotta do something like that, and they're gonna do something that they're gonna be proud of, and it's just gonna spark. I was telling her, I was like, it's gonna spark something within the Bengali American community that you probably never seen before, any of us have ever seen before. I think that's kind of what we're going to continue to try to do, like just constantly spark the next idea, the next mind to do something that like, this is the new benchmark, do something doper.
And uplift all the communities, all the minority communities that, deserve the recognition, the spotlight. Like it's our time to make those happen, which is why thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much for what you guys do here because you're creating the space for individuals and, children of immigrant entrepreneurs, creators to be able to talk about their story. And by sharing their story, individuals that are listening and they're feeling like they too can do what the people that are here are doing, right? And like Harvey said, the greatest act is to inspire. So kudos to you. Kudos to both of you guys. Continue
to inspire.
Exactly. Thank you for inspiring us and continue to inspire the community.
Appreciate it, Thank y'all for listening. Peace. Game.
Whew.
Game.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. You guys are doing amazing. Thank you. Please, both of you guys need to come.